This video contains discussions of real-life murder, violence, and abuse. Some viewers may find the content disturbing. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. It looked like any Tuesday morning in sleepy South London street. Children are walking to school, neighbors are putting out the bins, but inside one ordinary semi-detached house, something unimaginable was happening. 20-year-old Banaz Mahmod was alone. 3 men wearing gloves and masks forced their way in. For the next 2.5 hours, they raped her, tortured her, and finally strangled her with a shoelace, all while she begged for her life. And the people who ordered her murder? Her own father and her uncle. This is the story of Banaz Mahmod, an honor killing that shocked Britain and changed the law forever. Banaz Mahmod was born on December 16, 1985, in a remote mountain village in Iraqi Kurdistan, part of a tight-knit Sunni Muslim family clinging to ancient tribal traditions amid the chaos of Saddam Hussein's regime. Her parents, Mahmoud Babakir Mahmoud and Behya, raised 6 children, 4 daughters, including Banaz, her older sister Bakal and younger Paisy, plus a son, in the rural Miradale area near Kaladiza, where honor meant everything, and women's lives were ruled by unspoken codes of control. Life there was harsh but simple, dusty paths winding through jagged hills, families huddled against the cold in stone homes, and young Banaz, with her bright eyes and quick laugh, chasing goats with her siblings or helping her mother grind spices by the fire. She was the gentle one. In 1995, when Banaz was just 10, war and persecution forced the family to flee as asylum seekers. They crossed borders in secret, enduring weeks of fear and uncertainty until they reached the United Kingdom in 1998. Settling in the unassuming suburb of Mitcham, South London, they hoped for safety and a fresh start. At first, it felt like a fairy tale to young Banaz. The grey streets buzzed with possibility. Towering red buses, corner shops bursting with colorful sweets, and schoolyards where girls her age wore jeans and giggled over boy bands like the Spice Girls. English classes became her escape. She devoured books, scribbled poems in her notebook, and made friends who taught her to plait her long dark hair with ribbons instead of hiding it under a scarf. To her, London wasn't just a city. It was a door cracking open to a life where she could choose her own path, laugh without fear, and maybe one day fall in love on her terms. Yet beneath the surface, shadows lingered. Her father, Mahmoud, could be tender at times. He once caught a sleepwalking Banaz before she fell, but he clung fiercely to the old ways. Uncle Ari, the true family enforcer, despite being younger, watched like a hawk. In their cramped, terraced house, rules governed every breath. No eye contact with strange men, no makeup or short skirts, not even petting a stray dog on the walk home from school. Whispers from the Kurdish community could shatter reputations overnight, and Mahmoud's obsession with honor hung over them like a storm cloud. Banaz navigated it all with quiet resilience, her smile a shield against the growing tension. She was just a girl on the cusp of womanhood, full of unspoken hopes, unaware how fiercely her family would fight to keep her caged. Everything changed when Banaz turned 17. In late 2002, her father and uncle arranged her marriage to a man from their native village in Kurdistan, a 30-year-old laborer who was illiterate, deeply traditional, and stuck in a mindset from decades past. Banaz had barely finished school and had no say in the matter. The wedding was swift, the expectations clear. She was to obey, bear children, and uphold the family's honor no matter the cost. From the start, the marriage was a nightmare. Her husband beat her savagely for the smallest perceived slights, burnt dinner, a glance out the window, anything that challenged his control. Banaz confided in her family, describing the horrors in heartbreaking detail. The punches that split her lip, the nights she lay awake in pain, the isolation that made her feel like a prisoner in her own home. But her parents dismissed her pleas. "Stay," they insisted. "Leaving him would bring shame on all of us. Think of the community. What would people say?" For nearly 2 years, Banaz endured this hell. She grew gaunt and withdrawn, her once bright eyes shadowed with fear. Her sister Bekal later recalled seeing her carrying a heavy laundry basket by hand because her husband forbade her from using the washing machine, treating her like a servant. Scratches marred her face. A tooth was chipped from a blow and her spirit seemed shattered. Yet somehow she held on, clinging to fragments of hope. Finally, in July 2005, Banaz could take no more. She packed what little she had and fled back to her parents' house in Mitcham, bruised but determined to reclaim her life. For the first time, she tasted freedom, cutting her hair short, wearing jeans and a touch of makeup, stepping out without constant dread. It was during this fragile rebirth that she met Rahmat Suleimani, a kind Iranian Kurdish man who saw her for who she truly was. They fell in love quickly, meeting in hidden corners of parks and cafes, sharing dreams of a future free from chains. Banaz began to smile again, her laughter a quiet rebellion. But in the tight-knit Kurdish community of South London, secrets rarely stayed hidden. Someone spotted them kissing outside Morden Tube Station. Whispers spread like wildfire. By early December 2005, her Uncle Ari summoned a family council at his home. Over tense discussions and cups of tea, the men, her father, uncle, and others, decreed that Banaz had defiled their honor beyond repair. The punishment? Death for her and her lover. Banaz, unaware of the full plot at first, sensed the danger closing in. Her normal life was over, replaced by a ticking clock she couldn't yet hear. By mid-January 2006, Banaz now knew she was living on borrowed time. On 22nd January, 3 men tried to kidnap Rahmat in broad daylight outside his workplace. He fought them off and ran, but he recognized 2 of them instantly. Mohammed Saleh Ali and Omar Hussein, names Banaz had already written down and handed to the police weeks earlier. Terrified, she and Rahmat went straight to the station to report the abduction attempt. Officers took a statement, then sent them home with nothing more than a crime number. Banaz was scheduled to return on the morning of 24th of January to give a full witness statement. She never made it. Years later, while on remand, one of the killers, Mohammed Hama, was secretly recorded bragging to another prisoner about what really happened inside that house. In his own words, the attack lasted almost 3 hours. He laughed as he described how Banaz begged, how she tried to crawl toward the door, how she kept repeating her father's name, pleading for mercy that never came. He boasted that they took turns, that she was still alive when the shoelace went round her neck, and that it took a long time for her to stop moving. Then, with chilling calm, he said, "We put her in the suitcase while she was still warm, and drove her up north like rubbish." Detectives who listened to the recording later said they had to leave the room. What they had feared was bad had just become infinitely worse. It happened on Tuesday morning, 24th of January 2006. Banaz's parents left the house on purpose. Her father drove the youngest sister to school. Her mother went shopping. Banaz was still asleep on the living room sofa when the front door opened. Mohammed Hama, Mohammed Saleh Ali, and Omar Hussein walked in wearing gloves and balaclavas. They had been paid and instructed by her Uncle Ari and her father Mahmod. And for the next 3 months, while her boyfriend begged police to search for her, Banaz's own father sat in interviews pretending to cry, telling officers his daughter had simply run away with a lover. The day after the murder, Rahmat Suleimani began calling the police every single day, sometimes several times a day. He was told again and again that Banaz was an adult, had probably just left voluntarily. Her father and mother played the part perfectly. Behind the scenes, the Kurdish community closed ranks. Over 50 people became involved in the cover-up, providing false alibis, hiding phones, threatening anyone who talked, intimidating Rahmat on the street. Rahmat received death threats in Kurdish and English by phone, by text, in person. He moved house 3 times in a month and still couldn't sleep. Police searches of the family home turned up nothing. Banaz's suitcase, her clothes, her makeup, everything that proved she had planned to come back had quietly disappeared. By March 2006, the investigation was dying. Officers were ready to file it as a simple missing person case. Rahmat stood in the police station and begged, almost on his knees, "She is dead. I know she is dead. Please don't give up on her." He was the only person in the world still fighting for Banaz, and for a moment it looked like even he was going to lose. Everything changed when Detective Chief Inspector Caroline Good took over the case in early 2006. She refused to accept the runaway bride story. Within days, she had officers re-interviewing the family, pulling phone records and mapping every car that had left Mitcham on 24 January. The cracks appeared fast. Banaz's father claimed he had been at prayer all morning. His phone placed him somewhere else. Her mother's shopping trip lasted exactly the length of time the killers needed. And then came the breakthrough nobody expected. Mohammed Hama, already in custody for an unrelated matter, was secretly recorded in prison boasting about the murder in graphic detail. He named everyone: Ari, Mahmod, the 2 men who had fled to Iraq, even the address in Birmingham where the suitcase was buried. On 28 April 2006, police dug up a small back garden in Handsworth. 6 feet down, inside a cheap silver suitcase, they found Banaz, her body curled like she was still trying to protect herself. The full truth was far uglier than anyone outside the family had realized. Banaz had not waited silently for death. In the last 8 weeks of her life, she went to the police 5 separate times, each time begging for protection and each time being turned away. First visit, October 2005. She handed over a handwritten letter naming the men who would kill her, including Mohammed Hama, Mohammed Saleh Ali, and Omar Hussein. An officer filed it and did nothing. Second visit, early December. She reported her uncle Ari had threatened to kill both her and Rahmat. The desk sergeant told her she was being over-dramatic. Third visit, 12th of December. She delivered another list of names and said her father had already tried to kill her once. The report was marked low risk. Fourth visit, New Year's Eve 2005. After her father forced brandy down her throat and tried to strangle her in the kitchen, she smashed a window to escape, ran bleeding into the street, and collapsed in a cafe. PC Angela Cornes interviewed her in hospital and wrote in the log, "The victim is manipulative and melodramatic. Consider charging her with criminal damage." Fifth and final visit, 22nd January 2006. She and Rahmat reported the attempted abduction of Rahmat. Officers took a brief statement and told her to come back on 24th of January for a full interview. She never got the chance. Because those 5 cries for help were ignored, Banaz died exactly as she had predicted, by the exact men she had named, on the exact orders of the father and uncle she had identified. In court, the judge would later call the police failings catastrophic. The trials of 2007-2013 laid everything bare: the secret family meeting, the payment to the killers, the suitcase, the garden in Birmingham, and the 50 community members who helped hide the truth. Mahmod and Ari Mahmod were convicted of murder and sentenced to life with minimum terms of 20 and 23 years. The 3 stranglers received between 17 and 22 years each. For the first time in history, 2 of them were extradited from Iraq to face British justice. Banaz had told the police everything. They simply hadn't listened. The moment the verdicts were read, the surviving victims paid the highest price. Rahmat Suleimani and Banaz Mahmod, the only two people who had stood against the entire family and community, were immediately placed into permanent witness protection. Rahmat was given a new name, a new city, and a new life hundreds of miles from London. Every friend he ever had, every family member in Iran, every place he had ever felt safe, all were erased overnight. He testified twice, once in 2007 and again in 2010, each time knowing the Kurdish networks were still hunting him. 10 years later, in 2016, the loneliness and grief became too much. Rahmat took his own life. He was 31 years old. Banaz, now a mother, also disappeared into a new identity. She has never been able to speak to her younger sisters again. She still checks the locks 3 times every night, still walks away if she hears Kurdish voices in the street. In interviews, she has said, "I did what I had to do for Banaz, but the price is that I will never stop running." The killers remain behind bars. Mahmod, now in his late 60s, and Ari Mahmod in his 70s, will almost certainly die in prison. The 3 men who carried out the strangling are serving minimum terms of 17 to 22 years. And in the years that followed, Britain woke up. Honor-based abuse reports rose over 80%. Police training changed. Specialist units were created. But for Banaz, Rahmat, and Banaz, every reform came far too late. Almost 20 years have passed since that January morning in Mitcham, yet the ripples still haven't stopped. Honor-based abuse reports in the UK have risen more than 80% since Banaz's death. Hundreds of girls and women remain on police at-risk lists tonight. Campaigners led by women like Banaz and organizations such as Southall Black Sisters are still fighting for Banaz's law, legislation that would stop killers ever again using culture, religion, or honor as an excuse in court. Banaz's father and uncle are old men now, locked away in British prisons, still insisting they did the right thing. The lingering truth is simple and brutal. Banaz Mahmod just wanted to choose who she loved. For that, her family murdered her, her boyfriend killed himself, and her sister lost the rest of her life. Banaz never got out, but her voice is still being heard because people like you are watching this right now. If this story made you angry, do something with that anger. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. We keep their names alive so this never happens again. Rest in peace, Banaz. Turn on notifications. The next one drops soon. Thank you for watching.